All right, here we go. I'm Mark Yakuchi. I'm the state of Illinois rep and then the NSGIC chair for the 3DEP interest group. And we're going to continue on with the stuff that Becky Anderson was talking about with how states can engage with both the 3DEP and the 3D HP programs. And we're going to have 4 different presentations going on from this, from different state reps and states within NSGIC. Next slide. Okay, a little quick background in case somebody doesn't know. NSGIC's got a Data for the Nation project, and it includes both 3DEP and 3D HP. We've worked that with USGS to establish a national baseline of consistent high-resolution topographic elevation data and to create a modernized national hydrography data set derived from and aligned with the elevation data. Next slide. So how are we engaging now? We have 3DEP going on currently, and your states are engaging in 3DEP in a variety of ways: planning, data acquisition, distribution of derived products, outreach, education. We have our working groups, we have interest groups, monthly meetings, things like that. Next slide. So we're kind of thinking the same thing along the lines with the 3D HP program. Those interest groups, states can engage on the monthly forums. We can also engage through resource development. There's a critical factors compilation. There's a needs assessment that's going on or will be going on. We hope that the states can help provide feedback on the specification updates, working with stakeholder roles and responsibilities, especially local government with respect to the field work and verification on the HP, and then education and outreach. Next slide. Thanks. All right, we have 4 presentations. All right, Tennessee and Michigan will be talking about their motivations for the state 3DEP and 3D HP participation. And then Alaska and Washington will be talking about innovation, state 3DEP and 3D HP partnerships. For Tennessee, we have Dennis Peterson, Director of GIS Services in the Tennessee Department of Finance and Administration. Michigan is Mark Holmes, Geospatial Services Manager, Michigan Department of Technology Management and Budget. And for Alaska, Leslie Jones, Geospatial Information Officer with the Alaska Geospatial Office. And for Washington, Joanne Markert, Washington State GIS Coordinator, and Josh Greenberg, Washington State Hydrography Data Steward. So we'll go right into our first presentation with Dennis.
Hey, everybody. Thanks, Mark. Good afternoon. Before I begin, I wanted to recognize the great work that USGS has done over the years to support 3DEP. It's been a tremendous benefit for our state. The history, real brief, we went back to about 8 years ago. We put together a strategic plan, business plan around the need for us to enhance our elevation terrain data. So it was perfect timing in terms of when 3DEP became a program and the BAAs were announced. And we've had a lot of success. We just finished our statewide acquisition last year. As you can see in the slide, I'm not going to go through all of these, but we had many various motivations and business needs to generate a new terrain model based on LiDAR data, elevation terrain data. And so, like I said, it's been a tremendous benefit for our state, not only for these funding partners that are listed here, but many others across the state, both in the public and private sector. And so we're very excited, and I was very pleased to hear the details that Becky shared about 3D HP, because we want to roll from completing the 3DEP program right into the 3D HP efforts that they've outlined. Tennessee does have an existing hydro data set, and I won't go into all the details here either, but there are issues with our data set that we created about 15 years ago from our original Tennessee base mapping program, where we extracted hydro from the digital terrain models. And so there's technical limitations both with our state data that we've developed and with the Tennessee NHD data set in terms of feature standardization, density of features, alignment with the existing NHD with our new terrain data and imagery. So there's a number of technical limitations that we're encountering, like I said, both with our existing state data and with the 1 to 24K NHD. So we're very excited about this, and we've identified, next slide, please, several state agencies, federal agencies, and others that could benefit from the 3D-HP program. And again, I'm not going to read all these here, but I'll wrap up with the field of dreams approach in terms of build it and they will come. And I'll reflect back on the 3DEP efforts. At the beginning, we really underestimated the number of users that were going to be engaging with us and engaging the new terrain data. And we expect that the same thing is going to happen with 3D-HP, and that we have some idea of potential users, but we think there's going to be a lot more that are out there that will engage through various presentations and engagements throughout our state. So again, kudos to USGS. Thank you for all your efforts, and we're excited to see how 3D-HP unfolds. Thank you. Mark Holmes is next.
All right, thanks, Dennis. All right, so just want to highlight a couple things here, a lot of things similar to as Dennis mentioned in Tennessee. We have over the past, I'd say 6 years, 7 years up till last year, we finished up our QL2 LiDAR data statewide, working through partnerships, USGS, NRCS, FEMA, state agencies, and building that out. And it's been used heavily in stormwater, other, you know, from a local standpoint, engineering companies, state agencies. So we continue to see the benefits of that data set through those partnerships. So this led, and again, the value of that data and making sure we're leveraging it to its fullest needs. We started looking at, in 2018, with a focus group, to start determining how we can start looking at our hydrography and improving the positional accuracy of that using QL2 LiDAR data, and working to improve our flow lines, water bodies, water areas, and then you know, obviously updating the NHD and conflating that NHD over to the new flow line. So that led to a couple pilot studies. I presented on that through the back in February through the elevation derived hydro group. And so through the pilots that we did, we actually put an RFP out and awarded that here about a month ago to Geospatial NV5 and Michigan State University. And that's going to begin here next month to build out that hydrography data set region by region over the next few years. So again, coordination partnerships are going to be key here within our state and the community, our state agencies, local, regional, GIS, our vendor partners, and then obviously coordinating with USGS. We've already had some kickoff meetings to align things, get the communication happening as we're going to begin the project here. And again, we've identified many data improvement programs and stakeholders through our focus group. And if you go on to the next slide, I'll see if that's in here. So yeah, there it is. So use cases. So that focus group, back in 2018, we did an exercise of just looking to identify a lot of the various use cases and programs for improved hydrography. And this is just from a state agency standpoint. We know there's many more at the local, regional levels as well, and out into the private sector. So again, a lot of opportunity here for improving programs across the state with better data. So I think that wraps up my slides, and I will hand it over to the next speaker, Laska.
Hi, everyone. Leslie Jones here. So yeah, up until about 2016, topographic maps of Mars and the moon were actually more detailed than Alaska. And at that point, Alaska was kind of known as being the most poorly mapped place on Earth. And really to respond to that need in 2011, the Alaska congressional delegation requested federal support. And that request actually resulted in federal funds being appropriated to USGS under the Mapping Modernization Program and the creation of what is known as the Alaska Mapping Executive Committee, also referred to as AMEC. And this is, I think, what makes Alaska a little unique in our coordination. And AMEC is a coordinating body between federal agencies and the state of Alaska to support that project prioritization and really implementation for foundational statewide geospatial data that we don't have yet. And AMEC is chaired by DOI, the Department of Interior, and the Department of Commerce. So currently, acting committee co-chairs are NOAA Chief of Staff, Dr. Karen Hune, and Assistant Secretary of Water and Science nominee, Tanya Trejo. And through AMEC, we prioritize some of those foundational federal data themes. And the current ones that we're tracking are terrestrial hydrography, wetlands, GravD, shoreline, coastal topography, bathymetry, imagery, and elevation. And the state council, Alaska Geospatial Council, which is not unique to Alaska, provides that state coordination, really bringing together regional stakeholders, including those regional federal stakeholders. And that council itself provides support and feedback back to AMEC on the initiatives. And so leadership for the Hydrography Technical Working Group to support EDH is both a federal and state co-chair, working together to kind of coordinate those regional stakeholders. And so it's really the collaboration between these two coordinating bodies that really are essential for funding and implementing mapping in Alaska. And that coordination actually was essential to completing statewide elevation, which was our first statewide data set, IFSAR, and that was completed in 2020. It was a $68 million effort, cost shared across DOI agencies and the state of Alaska. And really that milestone is what is enabling Alaska to begin updating hydrography and working on the EDH, as well as other foundation data layers. Next slide, please. So coordination on EDH really began in 2020, and the USGS laid out a plan for which statewide mapping will be complete by 2029. And because the workflow under EDH is really different than what it looked like under NHD, we're currently working on rechartering our hydrography technical working group under the state council to try to lay out a plan for what we think stewardship is going to look like, and really how land management agencies, including the state, are going to work together to support that data review process. Really, due to the size of Alaska, coordination is key and really important for us to complete any statewide data mapping, and that I think stewardship under EDH is really going to be no different. And we see this process looking like a coordination across the land management agencies. I think likely where the state plays that primary coordination role and really is the liaison to USGS, and working with those identifying the land management agencies that can review the data and provide feedback to USGS. And so not really surprising that, you know, Alaska is really diverse and really has some complex ecosystems, and it makes sense for us to leverage the experts from the land managing agencies that know the different systems, tapping into their knowledge, you know, really being the best people to provide that feedback. And so as Becky mentioned, we have had a pilot program in the Kobuk watershed, which is northern Alaska. So it's a very complex, flat system, not clear channels. It was a very challenging pilot for the vendors. And so what we found is that, kind of trying to, blindly feel our way through what the stewardship program might look like. And it really helped us, and I think helped USGS in providing feedback. And so that was helpful for me to see maybe what this process might look like. And so anyway, I think both AMEC and AGC are critical for, we'll be working together to figure out what that stewardship looks like and helping to support that cross-agency need for coordination. Thanks.
Hi there. So I'm Joanne Markert. I'm the state GIS coordinator for Washington State. And, we've been doing this for quite some time, but I would say that some of the partnerships that we've been able to develop over the last few years has really helped. And actually some of that is between my office and our Department of Natural Resources, Abby Gleason. If you've met her, she's in our Department of Natural Resources Geological Survey group. And so together we've formed a stakeholder group, and that was actually thanks to the NSGIC impetus to get together some statewide plans. And so we started a stakeholder group in the fall of 2018. We weren't really sure who was going to be interested or what the level of participation was going to be, but actually it was quite high. We now meet twice a year, once in the fall. Our next one is in October, and then in the spring, usually in May or June. And we consistently have at least 50 participants on the calls. And those are from state agencies, local government, federal agencies, tribes. We just really get a lot of participation with that. And I think that's really been great for helping us set our priorities of where we want to go next with the state, and that we get everybody on board. We had really great ways to prioritize which mapping areas we wanted to do, and got feedback from our folks in the stakeholder group. And then now we're also looking towards refresh. And as we think about hydrography, we need to have our base level, and then we also want to be able to refresh it, because that's an data set that's going to probably need updating, particularly in certain areas. In general, we focus on natural hazards, geological hazards, agricultural uses. And so we've been working very hard building partnerships with rural areas of Eastern Washington. And something that happened during one of our stakeholder meetings, we were presenting, showing areas. We actually have a county that is now sort of a LiDAR island. We've collected LiDAR around it, but not in it yet. And after the meeting, we were contacted by FEMA about some other opportunities to potentially get LiDAR data captured for that county with some local participation. And so we're working on that now. We won't know until spring if that's successful, but it's those kinds of also somewhat spontaneous or unexpected connections that we make during the meetings that have really helped us continue to get full coverage for Washington. And with that, I'd like to talk about I'd like to have Josh Greenberg, our NHD steward, talk about how we are going to leverage this for the NHD.
Yeah, thanks, Joanne. And hello to everyone. I really wanted to be in person, mostly so you wouldn't get to see me wearing the headphones. But I've only been in the NHD steward position for 6 months, so I'm definitely hitting the ground running. But I wanted to talk about some of the activities that we've been involved with since I've started. And I will point out that we're lucky in Washington State. We have a close-knit GIS community, and that really has been a big help developing partnerships, but it still takes effort and planning. Everyone, as you know, is busy, and getting people's attention needs to be strategic. Fortunately, we also have a state policy that state organizations need to use NHD as their hydrography. And so they have a vested interest in working on making it better. It's the stick approach. And many of the state agencies already have linked data to NHD. Most local government agencies in Washington are not using NHD as their primary hydro data source, but many are interested. And so our approach is to emphasize the benefits of moving to NHD, the carrot. So I should have titled this the stick and the carrot, but the advantages of a single data set are immense. Being able to compare across organizations, share data, reduce duplication of efforts, agreements on locations and definitions of hydrography, plus all the tools and resources that USGS bring to the table are really important, and we're trying to help the local government agencies appreciate those benefits. We also hope to provide some local training and meetings to help discuss and get those groups more informed. We also want to make everyone feel that they are part of the solution. And we've even started with creating an identity, the logo in the lower right. So even though I'm with Department of Ecology, we don't want to associate this with one agency, or we want to show that the Washington NHD is it's for everyone within Washington State, that we're all partners together. Next slide, please. As we move forward using LiDAR to assist in our water mapping, it's also important to keep our local agencies involved. LiDAR, I don't believe, is going to work accurately everywhere. And that graph on the left is kind of a concept that as you move from rural mountainous areas on the left side of that graph to the urbanized lower elevation flat areas on the right, the LiDAR is going to become less effective, and you will need to rely more and more on local knowledge. And I think trying to better understand that transition and but also to appreciate that local knowledge will be very critical to get high accuracy. We're also trying to be very aware of jurisdictions. And so the map on the right shows some of the different jurisdictions, but what you don't see is that there's overlap. There's many of those polygons that overlap other polygons. And I think that's critical to be aware of to help allow different organizations that have overlapping jurisdictions and interests to discuss and talk before changes are made in their areas. And after 20 years of working in local government myself, I can assure you that these local agencies want accurate data. They want to be able to use it and have the benefits of it. So I think we just have to keep assuring them that we have this goal of working together. So that's all that I have now. Back to you, Mark.
Okay, I think we have next slide. Yes, we do. Questions for the panel or anybody that was up here? Anything from the chat? I saw some going through on the chat. I think most of them got answered. That's easy. Go to the next slide and get going quicker. Give Neil his time back. So with that, we say thank you. What? Oh, no, I got hands up. Oh, Linda's going to say something. Yes, I can share the questions in the chat with the group. 1 second. So Mark Holmes asked, or not, Kim Jackson asked Mark Holmes if he hosted his own needs assessment meeting or did he use a facilitator? And Mark's response was he was a facilitator and gathered the group to meet about every 2 months for about 2 years to gather requirements, benefits, and set up a proof of concept to then lead to the RFP that the SMEs from the group put together. It was informal and kept evolving with a path forward each time we met. Phil Worrell asked Leslie if there was a backstory to the artistry and cartography of the Geospatial Council graphic, and her response was that they had somebody, Jack Horner from MAT-SU Borough, who's co-chair of the Enterprise Working Group, and he made it. So those are the 2 questions that I saw. Any other ones? Linda's going like this. Anybody, somebody. No, okay. All right. So with that, your NSGIC staff and I thank you.